Hello, my name is Murphy, local representative for the National Party in Carlow. We're here in Ballymurphy today to commemorate the 103rd anniversary of the Ballymurphy Massacre, in which 4 men died at the hands of Lieutenant Grundy and his section of the British Army. 3 of the people killed were civilians. The first man to be killed was a 62-year-old farmer who was deaf, Michael Ryan. He was shot as he peered over his wall to see what was going on. 2 brothers, Peter and James Farrell, themselves only very young in their 20s, were shot because they ran in the same direction as the active service unit as they were fleeing, and were later bayoneted by the British Army as they came across their bodies, and the bodies were left there. The last man to die on that day was Michael Fay, who was an active service unit volunteer. He was killed by a notorious vicious drunk, an RIC sergeant by the name of Farrelly, who shot him in the head and bayoneted his body afterwards. The next day, as a court of inquiry was held, the British forces opened each one of their coffins in front of their family members, which was met, of course, with outrage. What I want to focus on today is not necessarily the details of the ambush. While these things are important, it's more important to take what we can learn from each one of these things. And the golden thread which I want to run through this today is the topic of preparation. The men of the Ballymurphy ambush were killed in this action because they were drilling in a field in preparation for an inspection by a senior member of the IRA who had just escaped from prison at the time. They were doing their part to, even though it was difficult to organise the Carlow Brigade, because Carlow was one of the most gentrified areas of the time. It has the highest number of country houses per hectare in the country. It was well known that it was described as a Shoneen county. Even still, those men did their part, and they paid the ultimate price for it. They gave their lives in their struggle, even though it was unceremonious. Something like 500 rounds were fired by the British at them that day, whereas the men only returned fire with 20. None of them had ammunition loaded in their rifles. Scouts were not posted to protect them and to ensure that they knew if there was a threat approaching. Today, we can draw similar parallels in terms of we're facing a similar oppressive government which is forcing on us conditions that nobody in Ireland wants. And it's very difficult to get out and do our own parts because it seems like we're at the start of the resistance, the start of the movement against this happening. But it is all the more important to be part of that vanguard, to be part of that small group of men who are going to make the difference. Though these men weren't massively successful in their organisation attempts, in their actions against the British Army at the time, they did the best of what they could with the modest means that they had at their disposal. And this was reflected in the way they were honoured on the day. Peter and James's bodies, there was a plough nearby them, and nobody knows to this day who did it, but somebody in the local community, when they had found out that they had been murdered shortly from the plough, they placed a bushel of gorse on the plough in commemoration, in respect for their memory. And obviously they didn't have access to large floral wreaths or any grand display of respect, but they did the best they could. You can make a large impact with the limited resources that we have, and even the small actions today, like coming out and remembering a bit more of an obscure action in the overall War of Independence, makes the difference in our struggle for Irish nationalism. And we honour our patriot dead, we honour our heroes, and they won't be forgotten. Yes, you're right.